A couple weeks later, I'm having lunch with their team, and about a month later, I'm sitting in their office for close to the next year and a half full-time consulting for this client at a very good rate, helping them implement this technology. How? Because of my blog. Hey, what's up friends? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Don Felker, and on this channel, I aim to help you start, survive, and thrive in the world of freelancing and consulting. I have over 20 years of software development experience and over 15 of that in freelancing alone. And today, I want to talk to you about how you can use blogging as a way for you to attract clients to reach out to you. There's tons of ways out there for people to do this, but I want to show you some tips and tricks that I've used over the years that have landed me quite a few contracts and continually to deliver value for me over the long term. So let's hop into it. Now, before we get going, one of the things that I want to say is it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And this is probably going to be a quote that you hear me repeat many times if you're watching multiple of these videos on my channel here. The main reason for that is because, let's be honest, if nobody knows what you're capable of doing or your skill set or anything of that nature, why would they ever reach out to you for any help? Why would they ask you to build a website or a mobile app or a web app or anything of that nature? What would make them do that? If you're a photographer, a copywriter, why would they reach out to you to do that? If they don't know that you can do it, then what's the point? Now, sure, you may know a ton of people out there that can do all kinds of things, and maybe you can reach out to them and maybe secure a deal that way, but what you really want in freelancing and consulting is the evergreen pipeline of clients of them finding you. You want them hunting you out. So how do you do that? Now, there's multiple ways to do it, and we'll cover those throughout multiple videos, but today I'm going to talk about blogging. And how do you use blogging to get clients to come to you? This is something I have quite a bit of experience with, and in fact, this is how I got my first number of clients that I eventually went independent with freelancing and consulting full time. I started blogging right around 2005 and 2006, and back then, everybody said, hey, blogging, it's too late, you can't come in. It's not popular anymore. There's no point in getting into it. But I still felt that there were some things missing, and I could share a couple of things and maybe I would catch a tail end of it. And again, as I've said in a few other videos, blogging it's not dead. Even now, 15, 16 years later, it's still not dead. Why? Because blogging is just sharing information, and information in software changes all the time. The stuff that I wrote 15 years ago doesn't even apply anymore, except for weird random edge cases where someone might find a blog post that helps them with the geocoding API that I wrote in C#. Something crazy. They might find it and find it useful. That's cool. But how can you use it nowadays? So first of all, you're just gonna need a blog. That's step one. Find a blog. If you haven't found a different type of blog service, there's multiple ones out there. You can do it on WordPress, Squarespace, you can build things on Wix. I personally recommend going with something like WordPress. Ghost is another one. You could use Ghost as well, but I prefer to rely on WordPress. The short explanation of why is because WordPress powers a humongous portion of the internet. It just works. I am not focused on configuring and tweaking and coding my own blog. I am just worried about writing and publishing. I don't want to have to worry about another piece of software I have to maintain. And furthermore, WordPress has a bunch of plugins that I can use. So eventually, when I decide I want to charge for a downloadable product, or I want to collect email addresses with a email service integration, there are a huge number of plugins that will allow me to do that. So I recommend WordPress. Use whatever you want though, just have a blog. So number two, what are you going to write about? A lot of people get stuck right here and they wonder, well, I don't know what to write, and I don't think what I'm going to share is going to be useful. And that's a valid concern. Everyone else has already written what I want to talk about. I'm a beginner. I'm barely intermediate. I really don't know anything advanced to talk about. But here's the thing. Share what you have learned. There was something that you were working on recently that you found very confusing. And for whatever reason, nothing really seemed to make sense until one day, everything just kind of clicked for you. What made it click? What was that inflection point for you where you thought, aha, I got it? Where did that light bulb go off? That's what you want to share. Share what made the light bulb go off. That's what worked for you, and most likely there's a lot of other people out there like you. So take what you've learned, what made that light bulb moment go off, and start writing about it. Again, if you're in software, this might be learning a new pattern or a new framework or something that you're working with in code that finally made sense to you. Again, design patterns are a really good example because at first they're really confusing, and then once you get it, all kinds of light bulbs go off. So share that and provide maybe a little tutorial of how you learned about this pattern and what made you think of it in a new light and how it came to fruition for you. Another option for sharing content is actually going to be sharing error messages and how you fix them. Now, this really might seem kind of weird, like why would I write about an error message? Who cares? I got an error, I finally fixed it, and I don't want to ever deal with it again. Here's the thing. How many times have you Googled something because you had this really weird error message and there's no results? Now, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And it just happened to me today and yesterday, actually. You kind of bang your head against the wall like, what is going on? Like, I really do not understand this. What I recommend that you do is once you figure out how to fix the problem and it's done, make sure that you've actually saved a copy of the error message in text format. Not a screenshot of it, not a prettified screenshot of it through some screenshot service, the actual text. And then you're gonna write a blog post about fixing it. And you might just title it, Fixing Error, blah, 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 whatever the error is. Now, this is not gonna be a super interesting post. This is not gonna be something somebody searches out. But however, you can just put it on your blog as something that's there for later. And I like to think of this as, if I ran into it now, I might run into it again. I'm going to blog about it just in case I need it again. And there have been multiple times when I have Googled an error message and my blog came up like, oh, I fixed this before, cool, all right. I wrote a note to myself. So I think of it as a note for myself, but the thing is, what you'll find is many other people are going to find this once you post it to your blog. And the reason why you want to keep it as text inside of the actual blog itself is simply because the Google and other search engines are going to index that text. So the next time someone searches for this error message and that error message is in the text that's in your blog post, it's gonna pop up on Google or whatever search engine they're using, because that's what they searched for and Google indexed it, and you might be the only result that has that. What you'll then find is people will start commenting on your blog if you have comments enabled. Say, thank you very much, I spent hours on this, I appreciate it a lot. But this is where the serendipity part comes in, because you may have posted a solution to that issue they had, but maybe your last blog post was about this new design pattern you're working with and how it made sense to you. And perhaps the person who just read this error message saying, might find that useful. And then they start reading that blog post and they see maybe another blog post on your sidebar that you have. Maybe it's the recent posts plugin or something on your sidebar. Oh, I want to read about that. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you have someone who knows about you, knows that you know these design patterns, knows that you know how to build perhaps a web app with the brand new technology. If you're using Android, you know how to use Jetpack Compose or iOS Swift UI or whatever. And you've written about it. You've explained your expertise and demonstrated it right there on the page. The serendipity is you actually get someone to your site from an actual error message, and then they find your other content. So it's almost like this hidden lead magnet that you don't even know about that exists. Because how many times have you searched for an error message, ended up on some blog, found the solution, and then maybe saw something else that was interesting on the site? Happens to me all the time. Happens to me on Stack Overflow. Happens all over the place. So definitely share it on your blog if you have error messages. So we have number one, share the content that you know. Number two, you're gonna share any of the error messages or anything like that. Now third, you can start sharing opinion pieces. These are gonna be things such as, this is why I don't think this technology is a good choice, or this is why I'm using this, and you can share an opinion. Everybody in software has an opinion. Some people think the model view model pattern is the best. Other people think the MVP pattern is the best. Other people think you should just kind of write spaghetti code because it's just easy to maintain and it's simple. Okay, I'm not gonna argue any of the points, but you can argue, hey, here's why I use this. And in fact, some of my most popular blog posts came off the cuff when I just wrote about what I felt and why I did something. And one of these prime examples was a number of years ago, about 10 years ago, I wrote a blog post why I was using ASP.NET MVP pattern versus the brand new ASP.NET MVC pattern. And the real simple reason was it just worked and it required less work. We only had 48 hours to complete this project for the client due to some other time constraints. And just due to the familiarity and the situation in which we were in, it was just smart to use the not older, but the not as new technology, even though the existing ASP.NET technology works completely fine. I put that out there and it gained a ton of popularity simply because it was just very pragmatic. So you can share those same topics. And then again, like, I was not an expert in the field at the time when I wrote these things. However, as I continued to put out content and educate people with things that I had learned, design patterns, error messages, opinion pieces, what ends up happening is people start finding you more and more. Now on your blog, what you will really want to do is make sure that you have a contact page. And on this contact page, it should have the ability for someone to send you a message with kind of a subject and a message, and they should have their email and their name inside of there. So, 4 fields on a contact page. I wouldn't advise putting your email address on your website. There's just too many spam bots nowadays that will scrape websites and your inbox will just be destroyed. So have a form on the website. And again, if you're using WordPress, you can use all different types of free contact form plugins that are free that will send you an email directly to your inbox. So when someone types information in. And in fact, this is how I landed one of my most lucrative contracts that I had for the first 5, 6, 7 years of my career. It was with a large auto corporation. Someone who is now a good friend of mine reached out and said, hey, I've been reading your blog. You seem like you know what you're doing in regards to a certain technology I was using. Seems really interesting. This is the route we're going at this company. Do you think you would be able to come in and help us out? Do you consult at all? And I replied back, yeah, of course, I definitely consult. A couple weeks later, I'm having lunch with their team, and about a month later, I'm sitting in their office for close to the next year and a half, full-time consulting for this client at a very good rate, helping them implement this technology. How? Because of my blog. Now, the blog wasn't anything super fancy. It wasn't, how to make $1 million with this technology. No, it was just explaining the topic, explaining it how I understood it and teaching it to other people. Now, of course, there's gonna be many different ways people find this. What do you do after you write your blog? Share it. If you have a social media profile, share it on your social media profiles. Share it on LinkedIn. Share it anywhere that you can share it when you post it. And don't be afraid to post it a couple of times throughout the week. Sometimes based on the algorithm and how they work on certain social media platforms, only a small percentage of your followers will actually see the actual post. So you can repost it a couple of times. People then find out about it. And eventually, of course, what's going to end up happening is Google is going to run across it, and you'll want to submit your website to be indexed by Google. If you're not sure how, you can just Google that, how to get your site indexed by Google. There's actually a page you can just drop the URL in, and the Google bot will then put it in its queue and start indexing your site. At that point in time, your content will start showing up on Google. You may not be the first page or the first 10 pages, but eventually, if you're providing enough content, etc., and value, your ranking will move up, especially for those weird one-off posts where you're the only one that's providing a solution to an error message or anything like that. So that's really the synopsis here. Share what you know. Now, the last thing to cover is how often should you be blogging? That's a very good question. It depends on how much time you have. When I first started blogging, I wanted to try to write a blog 2 to 3 times a week. That got difficult because if I wanted to make them high quality, I might have to do research, I might have to edit them, and so forth. What I have found is if you release one blog post a week, you will be doing a fantastic job of growing your following, and people will end up finding you very easily. So I recommend aiming for 1 a week. If you can't do 1 a week, do 1 every other week. But I definitely would keep it at a minimum of 2 a month, but definitely aim for 1 a week. This kind of gets you going real quickly. Now, if you're not sure, you're not having enough content, what I recommend you do is open up a Google Sheet or an Excel document and then just list out as many topics as you can think about that are interesting to you regarding your industry that you're in, and list them out so you have them in your head. And next time you have an idea, add it to the list. So when it comes time to write, you just open up the list, pick a topic, and start writing and publish. That about wraps it up. You do that, guarantee over a long period of time, which 6 months to a year or more, you're gonna start finding people reaching out to you and commenting, and you're gonna start growing your network. I hope that helps. And as always, if you have any questions or anything like that around this, blogging or anything of that nature, even blog engines you want to use, please drop a comment below and I'll help you out as much as I can. And I'll catch you in the next video.